The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched for miles in every direction. 12 massive seats arranged in a perfect circle housed the most powerful beings in known space. Each seat was designed for a different species, each one a master of their own corner of the galaxy. High Admiral Zethkri of the Zephyrian Empire sat in his crystal throne, his translucent body pulsing with blue light. His people had ruled the Eastern Spiral Arm for over 50,000 years. To his left, the massive bulk of Overlord, Grimnax filled a seat designed for the rock-like granite. Lords, these beings had crushed 100 rebellions across 10,000 years of conquest. The other council members were equally impressive. The Voidwalkers could bend space itself to their will. The Biomasters could grow living ships the size of moons. The Tech Priests had computers that could think faster than most organic minds. Together, they had kept order in the galaxy for longer than most civilizations could count. But today, they faced something new, something that made even these ancient powers nervous. The humans, spoke Counselor Vex through her mechanical voice box. The insect-like mantid rarely showed emotion, but her clicking legs betrayed her concern. They have achieved faster than light travel. A ripple of unease passed through the chamber. This should not have been possible. Every species took tens of thousands of years to develop such technology. Even the fastest had needed at least 20,000 years of careful advancement. The humans had done it in less than 300. How long since they discovered fire? Asked Grimnax, his voice like grinding stone. Roughly 100,000 of their years, replied the floating sphere that represented the Tech Priests. They went from discovering fire to traveling between stars in the blink of an eye. By our standards, they are still infants. Dangerous infants, added Admiral Zethkri. His crystalline form shifted colors as he accessed ancient databases. Look at their history. They fight constantly, not just against others, but against their own kind. They have had over 14,000 wars in recorded history. The council chamber fell silent. Most civilized species had perhaps a dozen conflicts in their entire development. The humans seemed to live for battle. They refused our standard first contact protocols, continued Zethkri. When we sent ambassadors to explain the natural order of the galaxy, they listened politely. Then they said no. Another uncomfortable silence. In 50,000 years, no one had simply said no to the Galactic Council. What exactly did they say? Asked the shadowy form of a Voidwalker. Zethkri's color shifted to a worried purple. Their representative, a female called Ambassador Torres, smiled at us. She said humanity appreciated our offer to join the council as a junior member. Then she said they would prefer to remain independent. Independent? The word came from several council members at once. She said they had worked too hard for their freedom to give it up now. She thanked us for our time and left. Overlord Grimnax slammed his massive fist on his throne's armrest. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. No species refuses the council. We have maintained order for millennia. The question is, said the smooth voice of a biomaster, what do we do about it? The answer was obvious to everyone present. The same thing they had done to every other species that had challenged council authority. The same thing they had done to the rebel confederacy 3,000 years ago. The same thing they had done to the Free Traders Union 8,000 years before that. We show them the cost of defying the natural order, declared Admiral Zethkri. We send the hegemony's finest. The hegemony's finest was not just a fleet. It was a statement. 12 ships, one from each council race representing the absolute pinnacle of galactic military might. Each vessel was a masterpiece of its species' technology. Each one had never known defeat. The Crystal Spear will lead, announced Zethkri. His flagship was a 3-mile-long work of art, grown from living crystal over centuries. Its weapons could crack planets. The Stonebreaker stands ready, rumbled Grimnax. His ship was built like a massive hammer, designed to smash through any defense. One by one, the other council members pledged their finest vessels. The Void Cutter could appear anywhere in space without warning. The Life Eater could turn enemy crews against each other with biological weapons. The Mind Razor could disable entire fleets with psychic attacks. What intelligence do we have on human military capabilities? Asked Counselor Vex. The Tech Priest sphere bobbed slightly. Limited. They seem to favor kinetic weapons and nuclear explosives. Very primitive compared to our energy manipulation and exotic matter systems. Numbers? They have perhaps 50 ships capable of interstellar travel. Most appear to be exploration or transport vessels. We detect only one that seems designed for combat. Laughter echoed through the chamber. Not the pleasant laughter of joy, but the cold laughter of predators who had spotted easy prey. One ship? Admiral Zethkri's crystal form pulsed with amusement. They plan to face the hegemony's finest with one ship? The vessel is called Indomitable according to their communications, continued the tech priest. It appears to be roughly 2 kilometers in length. Heavily armored by their standards, but nothing compared to our technologies. How long to reach their space? Asked the Biomaster. The fleet can depart immediately. 7 days to reach the edge of their system if we use maximum warp speed. Admiral Zethkri rose from his crystal throne. His form had shifted to a confident gold color. Then let us teach these humans about the natural order of things. Some lessons can only be learned through pain. The other council members agreed with various sounds of approval. Grimnax's rumbling laugh shook dust from the ancient walls. The Void Walker's shadow seemed to grow deeper. The Biomaster's flesh rippled with anticipation. But if any of them had looked more carefully at the data, they might have noticed something odd. The human ship was not running away. It was not hiding behind their world's defenses. Instead, according to the long-range sensors, it was moving to meet them. Most species, when faced with the hegemony's finest, either surrendered immediately or retreated to their strongest fortifications. The humans were doing neither. They were sending their single warship out to meet 12 of the galaxy's most powerful vessels in open space. The council members saw this as either supreme arrogance or complete stupidity. They did not consider a third option, that the humans might actually have a plan. As the great chamber emptied and the council members went to prepare their fleets, none of them thought to ask a simple question. If the humans were so primitive, if they were such infants compared to the great galactic powers, how had they developed faster-than-light travel in a fraction of the time it took everyone else? The answer to that question would have changed everything, but the council was too sure of their superiority to ask it. They had been the strongest for so long that they had forgotten what it felt like to face a real challenge. In 7 days, they would remember. The edge of human space looked empty to most sensors. Just another patch of dark void between star systems, marked only by a few navigation beacons and the occasional mining platform. But today it would become the site of the most important battle in galactic history. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching the tactical display with calm eyes. Her ship hung in space like a metal predator, 2 kilometers of human engineering and determination. The bridge crew worked quietly around her, checking systems and preparing for what everyone knew was coming. Long-range sensors are picking up multiple contacts, reported Lieutenant Commander Park from the sensor station. 12 ships, various configurations. They'll be in visual range in 30 minutes. Any changes in their approach vector? Asked Chen. No, ma'am. They're coming straight at us. No attempt at stealth or tactical maneuvering. It's like they expect us to just sit here and wait for them. Chen almost smiled at that. In a way, that was exactly what they were doing. But not for the reasons the aliens expected. The Indomitable was humanity's first true battleship, but it was not their first attempt at space warfare. Humans had been thinking about fighting in space since before they could actually reach it. Every war game, every simulation, every theoretical battle had taught them the same lesson. In space, everything was different. On Earth, armies could hide behind hills and rivers. Navies could use islands and weather. But space was empty. No cover, no terrain, no up or down. Just physics and whoever understood them better. Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from the lead alien vessel, announced. Communications Officer Martinez put it on screen. The main display shifted to show a crystalline, being that seemed to glow with internal light. When it spoke, the words came through the translation system in a voice like ringing bells. I am High Admiral Zethkri of the Zephyrian Empire, commanding the hegemony's finest. You are the human vessel Indomitable. That's correct, replied Chen. I'm Captain Sarah Chen, United Earth Space Force. Captain Chen, you are ordered to surrender your vessel immediately. Your species has defied the Galactic Council. This defiance cannot be tolerated. Chen looked at the tactical display. 12 ships against 1. Each alien vessel was larger than hers and several were significantly bigger. By any reasonable measure, this should have been a very short conversation. Admiral Zethkri, with respect, we didn't come this far to come this far. The alien's glow shifted to what might have been confusion. I do not understand this statement. It means we're not surrendering. A new voice cut into the communication. This one sounded like grinding stone. Human captain, you face the finest ships in the galaxy. Your single vessel cannot possibly stand against us. Maybe not, admitted Chen. But we're going to find out. The channel went quiet for a moment. Then Admiral Zethkri spoke again, his voice now carrying an edge of anger. Very well, but first let us show you what you face. The alien ships began to spread out into what humans would recognize as a classic intimidation formation. The largest vessel, a 3-mile crystal spear that seemed to bend light around it, took the center position. Around it, 11 other ships arranged themselves in a threatening display. There was the massive hammer-shaped stonebreaker, its hull made of what looked like solid rock. The void cutter seemed to flicker in and out of existence, its edges blurred by space-bending technology. The Life Eater was a writhing mass of organic curves that hurt to look at directly. Each ship represented thousands of years of advancement. Each one had weapons that could destroy cities. Together they had never known defeat. Impressive, said Chen, and she meant it. The alien ships were beautiful in their own way, works of art as much as weapons of war. Now you understand, said Admiral Zethkri. Surrender, and your crew will be treated with honor. I appreciate the offer, replied Chen. But I have to decline. What happened next was so fast that the alien sensors almost missed it. The manted cruiser Shadow Strike, eager to demonstrate human helplessness, fired a warning shot across the Indomitable's bow. It was a carefully calibrated energy beam, designed to pass close enough to show the humans how outmatched they were. The human response was not what anyone expected. A single projectile launched from the Indomitable's forward railgun. Not an energy beam, not an exotic particle weapon, just a solid chunk of tungsten accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. The projectile hit the Shadow Strike dead center and passed completely through it. But it did not stop there. It continued on its path and punched through the Biomaster vessel Fleshrender. Still moving, it struck the edge of the Granite Lord ship Stone Crusher. 3 ships. 1 shot. The projectile finally stopped when it embedded itself in Stone Crusher's thick armor. But by then, the damage was done. Shadow Strike's hull split open like a broken egg, atmosphere and debris streaming out into space. Fleshrender, its organic structure unable to handle the massive trauma, began to dissolve as its biological systems failed. Stone Crusher, built to withstand almost anything, was merely wounded, but even that was a shock to its crew. The alien fleet hung in space, stunned. In 50,000 years of warfare, no one had ever seen anything like that. What was that? Demanded Admiral Zethkri, his crystalline form now pulsing red with alarm. Captain Chen's voice was calm, almost conversational. Kinetic energy. Force equals mass times acceleration. We just used a lot of acceleration. The human captain paused, watching as emergency lights flickered across the damaged alien ships. Admiral, you should know something about humans. We've been fighting wars since before we could write. We've had 14,000 conflicts in our recorded history. We didn't develop fancy energy shields or exotic matter weapons. We just got really, really good at hitting things very hard. On the tactical display, the Indomitable began to move. Not the careful, measured movement of a ship trying to maintain formation, but the quick, aggressive motion of a predator that had decided it was time to hunt. You want to know the difference between us and every other species you've conquered? Chen continued. They developed in peace and learned to fight. We developed in war and learned to think. The alien ships were trying to recover from their shock, bringing weapons online and adjusting their formations. But they were moving like beings who had expected an easy victory and were now trying to adapt to a real battle. The humans, on the other hand, had been ready for this fight before they ever left Earth. All stations report ready for combat, announced the tactical officer. Very good, said Captain Chen. She looked at the display showing 12 alien ships, several of them damaged, all of them now taking her seriously. Let's show them how humans fight. What followed was not a battle in any sense that the Galactic Council would recognize. It was a lesson in the difference between fighting wars and studying them. The alien ships moved like they were performing a carefully rehearsed dance. Each vessel took its assigned position in formations that had been perfected over millennia. Their targeting systems locked onto the Indomitable with the confidence of predators who had never met anything that could truly threaten them. The humans moved, like they were trying to survive, evasive, Pattern Delta 7, ordered Captain Chen. Launch. Chaff and begin electronic countermeasures. The Indomitable suddenly became 3 ships on alien sensors, then 5, then 12. The real ship weaved between clouds of metallic particles while its computers began broadcasting false signals in every direction. Admiral Zethkri watched his perfect targeting solutions dissolve into chaos. "What are they doing?" "Unknown," replied his tactical officer, a younger Zephyrian whose crystal form was flickering with confusion. "Our sensors show multiple targets, but they cannot all be real." "Then find the real one." But the crystal spear's advanced sensors, designed to track enemies across solar systems, could not penetrate the cloud of simple metal chaff and electronic noise that surrounded the human ship. It was like trying to use a precision instrument to thread a needle during an earthquake. The Stonebreaker, commanded by Captain Throck of the Granite Lords, decided on a more direct approach. If they could not target precisely, they would simply destroy everything in the area. "Fire plasma cannons full spread," roared Throck. Streams of superheated gas erupted from the massive ship, filling space with deadly energy. The attack should have vaporized anything within a cubic kilometer of space. Instead, the energy beams passed through empty void. The Indomitable was no longer where it had been 3 seconds ago. "Impossible," growled Throck. "No, ship can accelerate that quickly." But humans had learned, something that the other species had forgotten. In space, there was no friction, no air resistance, no drag. A ship could change direction instantly if it was built right and if its crew could handle the forces involved. The Indomitable's crew was strapped into acceleration couches that could handle 20 gravities of force. Their ship was built like a fighter rather than a cruise liner. When Captain Chen said turn, they turned. When she said accelerate, they accelerated. Physics was the only law they followed. "Target acquired," announced Lieutenant Commander Park. The big crystal ship, bearing 27 Mark IV. "Fire," said Chen. Another railgun shot streaked across space, but this time Admiral Zethkri was ready for it. The crystal spear's shield snapped up, a barrier of pure energy designed to stop any attack. The tungsten projectile hit the shield and kept going. The energy barrier, tuned to stop particle beams and plasma bursts, could not handle a simple piece of metal moving at near light speed. The shot punched through the shield like it was not there, and struck the crystal spear's hull. Unlike the thinner-hulled ships that had been destroyed earlier, the crystal spear was built to take punishment. The railgun shot cracked its crystalline armor but did not penetrate. Admiral Zethkri felt his ship shudder under the impact. "Return fire! All weapons!" The crystal spear unleashed everything it had. Energy beams that could boil oceans, particle streams that could shatter mountains, gravitational pulses that could crush asteroids. All of them missed. The Indomitable was already somewhere else, moving in a pattern that seemed random but was actually carefully calculated to avoid the most likely firing solutions. "How are they predicting our targeting?" demanded Admiral Zethkri. The answer was simple, though none of the aliens would have believed it. The humans were not predicting anything. They were just very good at not being where their enemies expected them to be. Captain Chen watched the tactical display as her ship danced between energy beams that could have destroyed planets. Her crew worked with the smooth efficiency of people who had trained for this exact situation thousands of times. "Lieutenant Martinez, target that writhing ship with the bioweapons. Full spread of nuclear torpedoes." Nuclear torpedoes? The Biomaster ship Life Eater had been listening to human communications. They still use atomic weapons? How primitive. The torpedoes that streaked toward the Life Eater were indeed nuclear weapons, but they were not the crude bombs that early humans had built. These were carefully designed fusion devices, each one optimized for fighting in space. The Life Eater's organic armor was designed to absorb energy weapons and convert biological attacks. But it had never faced the simple, brutal force of nuclear explosions in the vacuum of space. The first torpedo detonated 50 meters from the ship's hull. The blast of radiation and electromagnetic energy fried the organic computer systems that controlled the vessel. The second torpedo hit the ship directly, and the Life Eater began to come apart as its biological structure could no longer maintain itself. "Two down," reported the tactical officer. "The tech priest ship is trying to jam our systems," announced Lieutenant Commander Park. The spherical vessel mined. Razor was broadcasting streams of data designed to overwhelm human computer systems. But the humans had learned from dealing with their own artificial intelligences. Their computers were protected by something the aliens did not understand. Simple isolation protocols that could cut off outside connections instantly. Return the favor, ordered Chen. Show them what a human computer virus looks like. The Indomitables. Computers began broadcasting their own signals, but instead of trying to overwhelm the alien systems with raw data, they sent carefully crafted code designed to exploit the very sophistication of tech priest computers. The virus was elegant in its simplicity. It did not try to destroy the alien computers. It just asked them to calculate something very complex, the exact position of every atom in the universe. The Mind Razor's computers, designed to be helpful and thorough, began the calculation. Within seconds, every processing system on the ship was locked up trying to solve an impossible problem. 3 down, reported Tactical. The remaining alien ships were beginning to panic. The Void Cutter tried to use its space-bending abilities to appear directly behind the human ship. But when it arrived, the Indomitable was ready with a spread of missiles that tracked the ship's energy signature through folded space. The Stonecrusher attempted to ram the human vessel, counting on its massive armor to crush the smaller ship, but the Indomitable slipped aside at the last second, and Stonecrusher found itself flying through a cloud of mines that the humans had dropped in their wake. One by one, the finest ships in the galaxy were being destroyed or disabled by tactics they had never encountered. Energy shields that could not stop kinetic weapons, advanced targeting systems that could not track a ship using primitive electronic warfare, sophisticated computers that could be crashed by simple logic bombs. This is impossible. Admiral Zethkri's voice carried across all channels. We are the masters of space. We have ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years. Captain Chen's reply was calm and measured. Admiral, you've ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years because no one ever tried to fight you properly. You've been playing by your own rules for so long that you forgot there might be other ways to play the game. The crystal spear shuddered under another railgun hit. Admiral Zethkri watched his fleet dissolving around him and felt something he had not experienced in centuries of warfare. Genuine fear. What are you? He whispered. We're humans, replied Captain Chen. We're the species that climbed down from the trees and decided the universe belonged to us too, and we've been fighting for every inch of it ever since. The battle had lasted less than 2 hours, but for the survivors of the hegemony's finest it felt like a lifetime. Ships that had never known defeat were drifting as wreckage. Crews that had conquered star systems were sending desperate distress calls. The natural order of the galaxy was crumbling in real time. Admiral Zethkri sat in his command throne aboard the Crystal Spear, watching his tactical display with growing horror. Of the 12 ships that had arrived with such confidence, only 5 remained in fighting condition. The others were either destroyed completely or so badly damaged that they posed no threat to anyone. Sir, whispered his tactical officer, perhaps we should consider retreat. The word hit Zethkri like a physical blow. Retreat. In 50,000 years of Zephyrian military history, that word had never been spoken on the bridge of a flagship. The Zephyrians did not retreat. They conquered or they died, but they had never faced an enemy like this. Status of remaining vessels, he ordered, his crystalline form flickering with colors that had no names in any language, the colors of confusion and defeat. Stonecrusher is heavily damaged but still mobile. Void Cutter has lost its space-folding abilities. Shadow Reaper's weapons are offline. Mind Razor is... Sir, we're not even sure if anyone is alive on Mind Razor. Zethkri looked at the human ship on his screen. The Indomitable showed signs of battle. Scorch marks on its hull, a few damaged sensor arrays, but it was still moving with the same deadly grace it had shown throughout the fight. How? He asked, not really expecting an answer. How are they doing this? The question was being asked on every surviving ship. Captain Throck of the Stonecrusher was running damage reports and trying to understand how his massive vessel, built to smash through asteroid fields, had been outmaneuvered by a ship half its size. Their acceleration rates are impossible, reported his chief engineer. No organic crew should be able to survive those kinds of forces. But the humans were not just surviving them. They were using them as weapons, turning physics itself into an advantage. When other species had developed artificial gravity and inertial dampeners to make space travel comfortable, Humans had built acceleration couches and trained their crews to fight under crushing G-forces. Commander Void Stalker of the Void Cutter was having his own crisis of understanding. His people had mastered the art of folding space, appearing anywhere on a battlefield without warning. It was a perfect ambush tactic that had never failed, except it had failed against the humans. Every time the Void Cutter had tried to appear behind the Indomitable, the human ship had been ready for them. Not just ready. They had been waiting with weapons trained on the exact spot where the Void Cutter would materialize. "How do they know where we will appear?" asked his navigator. "I do not know," admitted Void Stalker. They should not be able to predict spatial folding patterns. The truth was simpler than any of them realized. The humans were not predicting anything. They were just very good at watching for the energy signatures that preceded a space fold, while other species had developed more and more exotic ways to bend reality. Humans had gotten very good at noticing when reality was being bent. Aboard the Indomitable, Captain Chen was running her own analysis of the battle. But where the aliens were asking how they had lost, she was asking how they could finish this without unnecessary killing. "Damage assessment," she requested. "Minor hull damage, 2 sensor arrays offline. 1 railgun mount needs recalibration," reported Lieutenant Commander Park. "We're at about 90% combat effectiveness." Chen nodded. The Indomitable had been built by people who understood that space was hostile and that anything could go wrong at any moment. Every system had backups. Every critical component was armored. The ship could lose half its equipment and still fight. "Signal from the Crystal Spear," announced Communications Officer Martinez. "Admiral Zethkri wants to talk." "Put him on." The alien commander's crystalline face appeared on the main screen. His colors were muted now, the confident gold replaced by uncertain grays and blues. "Captain Chen," he said, and his voice carried a weight it had not held before. We need to discuss terms. I'm listening. My fleet is beaten. I will not lie about this. You have destroyed ships that were thought indestructible. You have defeated tactics that have worked for millennia. You have..." He paused, struggling with concepts that had no place in his understanding of warfare. "You have shown us that we know nothing about fighting." Chen could hear the pain in his voice. These were not evil beings, she realized. They were just people who had been on top for so long that they had forgotten what it felt like to lose. "Admiral, we never wanted this fight," she said gently. "We just wanted to be left alone." "That may no longer be possible," replied Zethkri. "Word of this battle will spread across the galaxy. Every species will know that the Council's finest fleet was defeated by a single human ship. Some will see this as an opportunity to rebel. Others will demand to know how you did it." Captain Chen felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature on her bridge. They had come here to defend Earth's independence. But in winning, they might have started something much larger. "What do you suggest?" she asked. "Come to the Council. Not as prisoners or subjects, but as..." He struggled with the word. "As equals. Help us understand what we have been doing wrong. Show us how to fight the way you fight. And if we refuse?" Zethakri's form shifted to colors that might have been sadness. "Then the galaxy will tear itself apart trying to learn your secrets. There are species out there that make the Council look peaceful. If they discover human tactics before we do..." He did not need to finish the sentence. Chen could see the implications. Humanity had not just won a battle. They had introduced a new way of thinking about warfare to a galaxy that had been stable for 50,000 years. "I'll need to consult with my government," she said finally. "Of course. But Captain..." Zethkri paused. "What your species has done today will change everything. You have broken more than just our ships. You have broken our certainty that we understood how the universe works." After the transmission ended, Chen stared at the tactical display showing the wreckage of what had been the galaxy's most powerful fleet. Lieutenant Commander Park approached her station. "Ma'am, what are your orders?" Chen looked around her bridge at the crew that had just changed galactic history. They looked tired but not victorious. They understood as she did that winning this battle might have created problems they could not yet imagine. "Set course for Earth," she said finally, "and send a priority message to command. Tell them we need to talk to the politicians, all of them." "What should we tell them happened here?" Chen looked one more time at the defeated alien fleet. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for longer than human civilization had existed. Crews that were now questioning everything they thought they knew about warfare and power and their place in the universe. "Tell them we won," she said quietly, "and that we're not sure what we've won." 3 weeks after the battle that shocked the galaxy, the news had spread to every inhabited system. The story grew with each telling, but the core facts remained the same. Humanity's single battleship had faced the Galactic Council's finest fleet and broken them completely. The reactions were as varied as the species themselves. On the crystal worlds of the Zephyrian Empire, military academies that had taught the same tactics for millennia suddenly found their textbooks useless. Young officers studied grainy recordings of the battle, trying to understand how the humans had made the impossible look routine. "Look at this maneuver," said Cadet Velthari, her crystal form shifting to excited yellow as she analyzed the footage. "The human ship changes direction without slowing down. How do they survive the acceleration forces?" Her instructor, a veteran of 100 battles, could only shake his head. "We do not know. We are having to learn everything again." In the deep caverns of the Granite Lord's homeworld, engineers tore apart their most powerful ships to understand why human kinetic weapons had penetrated armor that could withstand stellar radiation. The answers they found challenged everything they thought they knew about defense. "Energy shields are useless against simple mass," reported Chief Engineer Cromack to the Granite Council. "The humans shoot metal, just metal, but they shoot it so fast that nothing can stop it." "How fast?" asked Overlord Grimnax. "Fast enough that our shields think it is light instead of matter." The silence that followed was filled with the sound of an empire reconsidering its entire military philosophy. But the most dramatic changes were happening in species that had never been part of the Council. For 50,000 years, they had accepted that the 12 ruling races were simply better, stronger, more advanced. The battle at the edge of human space had shattered that belief overnight. On the rim worlds, rebellions that had been brewing for centuries suddenly exploded into open warfare. Not because the rebels thought they could match human tactics, but because they now knew the Council was not invincible. The free colonies, crushed by the Council 3,000 years ago, began rebuilding their fleets. The trader guilds, forced into submission 8,000 years past, started demanding independence again. And in the depths of space, things that were older and darker than the Council began to stir. Ancient enemies who had been waiting for a sign of weakness. Pirates and raiders who had hidden in the void for millennia. Species that had been driven to the edge of extinction and had spent thousands of years planning their revenge. The galaxy was coming apart. Admiral Zethkri understood this better than most. As his damaged fleet limped back toward Council space, he received reports of uprisings, attacks, and system failures across a dozen sectors. The careful order that the Council had maintained was dissolving like ice in a furnace. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Council chambers." "Put it through." The hologram that appeared showed all 11 remaining Council members. The Biomaster representative had died when the Life Eater was destroyed. Their faces across a dozen different species all showed the same expression of barely controlled panic. "Admiral," spoke Counselor Vex, her insect features clicking with agitation. "What is the status of your mission?" Zethkri's crystal form shifted to colors that had no translation in most languages, the colors of absolute honesty in the face of disaster. "The mission is a complete failure. The human ship defeated us. Not barely, not through luck, but decisively. They destroyed 7 of our finest vessels and disabled 3 others. If they had wanted to kill us all, they could have done so easily." The Council chamber erupted in voices speaking a dozen languages. Overlord Grimnax's stone fist cracked his throne's armrest. The Void Walker's shadow seemed to collapse in on itself. The Tech Priest sphere bobbed frantically as its internal systems overloaded with calculations. "How is this possible?" demanded the Biomaster replacement, a creature that looked like a tree made of flesh. "The humans are primitives. They discovered space travel yesterday." "I thought so too," admitted Zethkri. "But we were wrong. They are not primitive. They are different. They approach warfare from directions we never considered." "Explain." Zethkri began to detail what he had learned. How humans used simple physics as weapons. How they treated space as an environment to be exploited rather than endured. How they fought not with exotic technologies but with careful applications of basic principles. They do not try to be clever, he explained. They try to be effective. When we developed energy shields, they built better guns. When we created targeting computers, they learned to be unpredictable. When we made stronger armor, they found ways to hit harder. The council listened in growing dismay as their most experienced admiral explained how thoroughly they had been outmatched. "What do they want?" asked the Void Walker, its voice echoing from somewhere between dimensions. "They want to be left alone. But I do not think that is possible now." Zethkri was right. Even as the council debated, reports were flooding in from across the galaxy. The human victory had inspired not just rebellion, but curiosity. Every major power wanted to understand how a single ship had defeated the hegemony's finest. Some sent ambassadors, others sent spies. A few sent fleets, hoping to capture human technology or personnel. All of them discovered the same thing: Earth was ready for visitors. The Indomitable had not been humanity's only preparation for contact with galactic civilization. As the ship approached Earth, it was joined by 6 more vessels of similar design. The human home system, which long-range scouts had reported as lightly defended, bristled with weapons platforms, sensor networks, and ships that moved with the same deadly efficiency as the Indomitable. Captain Chen stood on her bridge, looking at a tactical display that showed more than 50 alien fleets approaching human space from various directions. Some came as friends, others as enemies, most as unknowns with unclear intentions. "Ma'am," reported Lieutenant Commander Park, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth Command." "Put it through." Admiral Helena Vasquez appeared on the screen, her weathered face showing the strain of commanding humanity's first interstellar war. "Captain Chen, congratulations on your victory. I'm afraid it's gotten complicated down here." "How complicated?" "We've got 12 species asking for military alliances, 8 demanding we surrender our tactical data, 15 wanting to hire us as mercenaries, and 3 that have declared war on us. The politicians are having nervous breakdowns trying to keep up." Chen looked at the display showing the approaching fleets. Each one represented a different choice for humanity's future. Alliance, conquest, isolation, or empire. All options were on the table. "What are your orders, Admiral?" Vasquez smiled grimly. "Same as they've always been, Captain. Protect Earth and her colonies. Everything else is politics. And if the politicians make the wrong choices, then we remind them that we're the ones with the ships." The transmission ended, leaving Chen to contemplate what they had started. In trying to preserve human independence, they had become the most important factor in galactic politics. Every species now had to account for human capabilities in their strategic planning. But as she watched the approaching fleets, Chen felt something that surprised her: anticipation rather than dread. The humans had spent their entire history fighting against impossible odds. They had faced ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that would have destroyed other species. Now they faced the galaxy itself. And for the first time in their history, they were not the underdogs. "All stations, this is the captain," she announced to her crew. "We're about to have a lot of visitors, some friendly, some not. But remember what we learned in our first battle. The universe is big and dangerous, but it's not smarter than us." The crew responded with quiet confidence. They had broken the galaxy's finest fleet with tactics that their enemies had not understood. Whatever came next, they would face it the same way they had faced everything else in their history: together, stubborn, and absolutely refusing to give up. Behind them, Earth turned slowly in space, a small blue world that had just announced to the galaxy that the age of easy conquest was over. The age of humanity had begun,